Once upon a time, there was a small town in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by dense forests and misty hills. People who lived there believed that it was a peaceful place, where nothing bad could happen. However, they were wrong. One day, a young girl named Emily disappeared without a trace. Her parents searched everywhere but could not find her. The town was in shock, and the people started to suspect each other. Some said it was the work of a serial killer, while others believed it was a supernatural entity lurking in the woods. Months passed, and the town slowly returned to its routine, but the memory of Emily's disappearance haunted everyone. That was until strange things started happening in the town. People reported seeing strange figures in the woods, and others claimed that they heard eerie whispers in the night. One day, a group of teenagers decided to explore the woods to see if they could find any clues about Emily's disappearance. They went deep into the forest, and as the night fell, they saw something moving in the bushes. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness, and they could see it was a woman with long black hair and a pale face. She was wearing a torn dress, and her eyes were glowing red. The teenagers were terrified and started to run, but the woman chased them. They stumbled upon an old abandoned house and went inside to hide. The house was dark and damp, and the air was thick with the smell of decay. The teenagers huddled together, hoping that the woman would not find them. But then they heard footsteps, and the woman appeared in front of them. She was holding a bloody knife, and her eyes were filled with malice. The teenagers screamed, but it was too late. The woman attacked them, and they never returned to the town. From that day on, people avoided going into the woods, and they warned outsiders to stay away from their town. The memory of the teenagers' disappearance haunted the town forever, and no one ever found out what happened to them. Some believe that the woman in the woods was a ghost seeking revenge, while others think it was a serial killer on the loose. But one thing was for sure, the town was not as peaceful as it seemed, and there were dark secrets lurking in the shadows. As the years passed, more people went missing in the town, and the fear of the unknown grew. The townspeople lived in constant terror, always looking over their shoulders and locking their doors at night. It wasn't until a group of investigators came to the town that the truth was revealed. They uncovered a network of underground tunnels beneath the town, where a secret cult was conducting gruesome rituals in the name of an ancient deity. The investigators found evidence of human sacrifices and cannibalism, and the cultists were arrested and brought to justice. But the damage had already been done. The town was forever tainted by the horrors that had occurred there, and it became known as a cursed place. People still talk about the strange occurrences in the town, and some say that the spirits of the victims still haunt the place. The woods are avoided by all, and the old abandoned house where the teenagers were killed is now a place of dark legend. No one knows what really happened to Emily, but her disappearance was the catalyst for the uncovering of the town's dark secrets. The memory of her and the other victims remains, a haunting reminder of the evil that can hide in the most unexpected places. It was a dark and stormy night, and Tom had just drifted off to sleep when he was suddenly jolted awake by a strange noise. At first, he thought it was just the wind howling outside, but then he heard something else. It was a soft, low muttering coming from the corner of his room. As he sat up in bed, his eyes slowly adjusted to the darkness, and he saw a figure standing in the corner. It was Richard, the old caretaker who had worked on the property for decades. But something was different about him tonight. He was facing the wall, muttering to himself and smiling a twisted, sinister grin. Tom tried to call out to Richard, but his voice was caught in his throat. He watched in horror as Richard slowly turned around to face him, his eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. The caretaker's lips parted, and a deep, guttural voice spoke through him. "Open the door," the voice said. "Let us in." Tom's heart raced as he realized that Richard was possessed by something evil, something that wanted to come inside. He tried to resist, but the voice was too strong, too insistent. Slowly, he got up from his bed and stumbled towards the door. As he reached for the doorknob, the voice grew louder, more insistent. He could feel the presence of something dark and malevolent just beyond the door, waiting to enter his room and claim him for its own. With a deep breath, Tom braced himself and flung open the door. But instead of a terrifying monster or a pack of demons, he was greeted by nothing but the empty darkness of the hallway. Richard was nowhere to be seen, and the muttering voice had disappeared. But Tom knew that something had been unleashed that night, something that could never be put back into its box. As he sat alone in his room, he realized that he would never be safe again, never able to escape the fear that had taken hold of him. And so he sat there, watching and waiting, knowing that the darkness was always just one step behind him, waiting to claim him for its own. He sat there in silence for what felt like hours, his heart still racing from the encounter. The storm outside continued to rage on, with flashes of lightning illuminating his room in brief bursts of light. Finally, he mustered up the courage to get out of bed and investigate. Slowly, he made his way through the dark and creepy hallway, his eyes scanning for any sign of Richard or the mysterious force that had possessed him. As he turned a corner, he was suddenly confronted with a chilling sight. There, at the end of the hallway, stood Richard once again, facing away from him and muttering to himself. But this time he was not alone. Surrounding him were shadowy figures, their forms barely discernible in the darkness. Tom's blood ran cold as he realized that these figures were not of this world. They were spirits, ghosts of those who had been trapped in the house for centuries, and they were angry. The muttering voice that had possessed Richard was just the beginning. Suddenly, the spirits turned to face him, their eyes glowing with frightening light. Tom felt a wave of terror wash over him as he realized that they were coming for him too. He tried to run, but his feet felt like they were rooted to the spot. As the spirits closed in on him, Tom felt himself being lifted off the ground and pulled into the darkness. His screams echoed through the empty halls of the haunted house, but no one was there to hear them. The next morning, the only evidence of Tom's existence was a single cryptic video on his YouTube channel. It showed nothing but an empty room, with the sound of a faint muttering in the background. Those who watched it felt a shiver run down their spine, and many were convinced that the video was cursed. And so the haunted house claimed another victim, its dark and malevolent energy continuing to spread and ensnare those who dared to venture inside.